was giving a ticket to someone was paralyzed from the waist down after a guy on the road ran off the road and hit the police officer. The the guy was had just bought some motorcycles from a big motorcycle place in LA. Had 2 pounds of marijuana in his car. His friend and him were high as a kite, and he told the police officer, "Man, I am high."
All right, everybody, welcome to another great episode of Cases Gone Wild with me, your host, Jon Marko. We have a great guest, a great trial lawyer, a prestigious lawyer, a member of ABOTA, just a great guy, great friend. Mike Alder is coming on the show today, and we're going to talk about some of the craziest cases. I'm also very excited because Mike is coming to the Trial Lawyers Summit here in Michigan on June 20th and 21st. He's one of our esteemed speakers, along with another great titans of the Trial Lawyers Bar. If you want more information on that, please register now if you're a lawyer out there at MTL Summit, MTLSUMMIT.com. We'll get right into it today on Cases Gone Wild. Hey, Mike, welcome to the show. Thanks for getting up early with us in California over there.
Hey, of course. Happy to be here. Thanks a lot.
I hope you guys, our thoughts and prayers are with you with these fires that we, in the Midwest, we just see it on TV, but I know it's just a tragedy. And I understand that, you're doing everything you can to help out, and that's the type of guy you are.
Yeah, well, it's really whatever description you can put on it, times it by 10. It's catastrophic. I grew up in Louisiana, and that's where I'm from originally. I have all my friends back there calling to check on me, and they're like, "What's it like?" And I literally said, "It's LA's Katrina," and they go, "Oh shit, okay."
Yeah,
and it really is. We've been in full relief mode. Gina, my wife, and I, we've housed, I don't know, 400 or 500 people, and our office is now a relief. We're having a big event today and tomorrow, actually, for the community. So, everybody's pitching in. It's not just us; it's thousands and thousands of people.
that's great. I mean, I think that these tragedies bring out the best and worst in us as a society. You see online. I saw online. On one hand, I saw some of the things you were doing, like for example, giving like free legal advice. I saw that you had actually written price gouging template letters for people so they could get help, because I guess California has a price gouging law to prevent people from taking advantage of these disasters. But on the other side, you see some of the worst, right? Like people taking advantage of the situation to try to make money. I see people, I saw out of state people coming in and advertising to try to, create lawsuits, which is part of what we do. But it's just distasteful to take advantage of a tragedy to try to make an immediate profit when people are hurting. You know what I mean?
Well, we all, probably everybody who's watching this, is similarly committed to helping people, right? I mean, obviously we have things and we make money and all this, but I think really to be a good trial lawyer, you gotta be a caring person. And I was incensed by some generic wildfire compensation fund. You can get up to $20 million, and we all know that ain't going to happen, right?
Right.
And the only reason that number is there is a scared, vulnerable person in the worst time of their life because, oh my God, this is a saving. I'm going to get $20 million, and it's complete BS. And conversely, so many friends of mine, us and everybody else, legitimately offering, free help, free services down the road, of course. But, everybody here is kind of underinsured if you had insurance. And I'm like, you don't need a public adjuster or a lawyer for the policy that's half the value of your home. They're going to pay you. Stop.
Right.
Don't,
Right.
right? And so just kind of stuff like that,
Well, thanks for, we haven't had wildfires here, but I think everybody out there in their own state has had their own disasters.
Oh,
We had
100%.
a
Yeah.
dam failure here. I don't know if you heard it. It wiped out people's homes. We've had, the Flint water crisis, which killed, harmed, maimed people. And so we all deal with these tragedies. It's part of life, and we, try to help people navigate through them. That's part of what we do, you
1,000%.
know.
Yeah. Of course.
So let's tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. You're in California. You have a very impressive resume. You've been named California Lawyer of the Year. You're part of ABOTA, which is a very prestigious organization for both plaintiff and defense, but you have to be recognized as kind of a top tier lawyer who upholds the values of civility and professionalism. And I see that you give back. I mean, you talked about what you're doing with the fires right now, but I've just known that you give back to so many ways. I call it pay it forward. You know, like you give back to the younger lawyers. You help the younger lawyers. You have free informational databases. I see. You just are doing great things. So just tell our viewers just I know we could spend 45 minutes on it, but just a brief synopsis of who you are and kind of your background.
Grew up in Louisiana. My parents were started as preachers, right? My dad was a traveling preacher, Southern preacher. Couldn't make enough money doing that, and became teachers. So I grew up in a 700-person town in Louisiana. Had a wonderful childhood. My parents taught me a lot of. Now, as I get, well, the older I get, my parents get smarter every year, right? It's
Yeah.
probably but instilled things that mean a lot to me about giving, about helping, about fighting for the underdog, about being a good person. And it's not a line. It's part of my DNA. And but that also is good business. It's also good karma. It's also good living. It's also in every way. And so I put that together. But I grew up in the South. Went to LSU, Louisiana State, undergrad and law school. Didn't really know what kind of law I wanted to do there. I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't know anybody. And I got married at 19 to
Oh
a
man.
woman who was going to be an entertainment lawyer in LA. So she wound up really smart, was first in our class, and as some of y'all know, she got a clerkship for a U.S. Fifth Circuit after that in Jackson, Mississippi. So here I am going to live in Jackson, and as a giving person, I helped the top 50% of my class get there. So I was like, what the heck am I going to do? I talked my way onto the Supreme Court clerkship of Mississippi, and it was there I met a guy. Many of y'all may remember Chuck McCrae was a justice of the Mississippi Supreme Court, trial lawyer, and he was cool. Took us all the clerks out for drinks and would tell
Yeah.
war stories, and that's how I fall in love with trial work. Again, I didn't have a mentor. He became my mentor and
Yeah.
helped me interview in LA because I was moving to LA because my then wife was going to be an entertainment lawyer, and I had never been west of Austin, Texas until I flew to LA to interview with back then some of the greats of the trial work in LA. 7 interviews, no offers. Eighth interview, got an offer, accepted, and I worked. It's like people ask you, "Oh, do you open your own firm right away, or do you work for somebody?" And I had the benefit of working for a man named Michael Hughes, who kind of trained many of the really good trial lawyers here in LA.
Yeah.
And then I opened my own practice 25 years ago with one case out of my house, kind of like what all of us have done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And was just putting the shingle out and said, I'll try anything that moved. I'm
Yeah.
about, I don't know, 100 and I don't even know any, right? At some point, you try enough
You
where you
stop
forget.
counting. Yeah.
110, 20, something like that, and here I am.
Here you are. That's a great story, and you never know where life's going to take you. I always tell people it's a lot of hard work, but it's a lot of luck. I had a similar background as you. My dad was a theologian. They instilled good values in us. We didn't have a pot to piss in growing up, which was, I think, makes me a better trial lawyer now.
Oh,
And
100%.
ended up clerking for our state Supreme Court here in Michigan, and then I had some mentors. But I think what you said is right. Having that a good value base and caring about people makes us better trial lawyers because despite what some people say, I think juries are smart and they can see through bullshit, right? And they get a feeling of who's good, who's bad, who's the good, bad, and ugly.
Well, and you probably have a very good sense yourself of when you meet somebody in probably 15 seconds, you're like up or down, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think most people are like that, right? I mean, just how you stand and respect the jury and the judge, how you address the judge or jurors in voir dire, right? And growing up in the South, it was a yes, sir, and a yes, ma'am. And it's not even in a thought that I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But how many times have we all been in a jury voir dire and somebody pours their heart out to you about their parents had died and it's a wrongful death case, and then the defense lawyer's not listening and they get up and they goes, anybody suffered from a death? And you're like,
Yeah.
we've been
Yeah.
talking for 10 minutes. This woman's been
Right.
crying. What are you doing?
Raise your hand if you suffered from a death. Okay, check the box. Next question. It's ridiculous. Well, it's good. So tell us about Mike. Tell us about some of you're on Cases Gone Wild. So I hope you brought some crazy cases. Tell us about. Let's start with. Tell us about a crazy case that you had and how it went wild.
So just north of LA is a county called Ventura County in Ventura.
Sure.
And I got asked to get involved in a trial where a CHP officer who was giving a ticket to someone was paralyzed from the waist down after a guy on the road ran off the road and hit the police officer. The guy had just bought some motorcycles from a big motorcycle place in LA. Had 2 pounds of marijuana in his car. His friend and him were high as a kite, and he told the police officer, "Man, I am high." And he had $15,000 worth of insurance. And they're like, and they had sued the motorcycle company for not strapping in the motorcycles tight enough because the guy also said, I ran off the road because the motorcycle started to move. So they brought me in and I'm trying the case.
Against the high guys was
The high
suit-
guys were still a defendant because they didn't accept the 15, but against this $10.5 million insured motorcycle dealer.
Did the high guys work for the dealer or were
No,
they
no, no.
just
They
like,
had just gone and bought some motorcycles,
okay,
smoked the weed. Were
Yeah.
high. So now I'm in this trial, and in California, one, if I can show any liability on any defendant, they are responsible for all of the economic damages, which is in my, a paralyzed police officer who's making money, was probably 15, $20 million, right?
So that's called joint and several liability, right? That's for our viewers. So that's one. Even if it's 1%, Mike. If it's
Even
1%,
if it's 1%, yeah.
wow, you guys
And
always have the good laws out there, man.
You deduct the liability of the plaintiff, if any, but in this case there was none. So now I'm in a conundrum because how do I prove that it's not completely the fault of this dude who is high as a kite, admits he's high as a kite, has 2 pounds in his truck, and is clearly so now.
And
I'm
2 pounds is a lot of weed. That's a lot of weed.
No, I mean, they're like, what the hell? So now, maybe I want to prove that he smokes so much and so often that it does not reduce his ability to drive because his tolerance level is high. So now I'm trying a case where I'm actually not only admitting that he's high as a kite, he's high so much
That's just
And
his
it,
normal day,
just
right?
his normal day. So now my case becomes all about smoking weed. So now I don't want people who are against weed. I want people who smoke weed all the time.
Yeah. And we all know
So
somebody who like wakes up. What did we used to call it in college? Like, uh, I forget, but it was like you wake and they would smoke weed like first thing in the morning, like
right.
before breakfast. You know?
So imagine a voir dire, and the judge was I'm like, Judge, we're going to need a questionnaire where we have, right. So my whole voir dire started kind of from a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
And I came in to try the case, so I had not done any really of the depots other than the expert depositions. So the $15,000 defendant who was in jail, who had been deposed, not on video, right? I had to just live with whatever he wasn't coming to trial. I had to live
How
with
did the
that.
cop get hurt? Did the bike come off the truck or
No,
something?
no, no. The guy it was coming around a curve, and he said, my bike moved, and I looked back, and I ran off the road and hit the cop.
Okay, he hit the cop with a motorcycle,
No, with the truck that he was
with the
in.
truck that had a motorcycle on it.
And so my argument was the motorcycle that had been strapped down by the motorcycle company wasn't strapped down the right way, and it started to move, and that distracted the truck driver, and that's why he ran off the road, not
Okay.
because he was high as a kite,
Well,
because
what
he
was he
smoked
doing
so
with
much
two
weed that
pounds of weed? That's a lot of weed. I mean, 2 pounds is like bags of weed, like trash
oh
bags
no,
of
no,
weed.
it was like, yeah, it was a lot. So so that was the case, and of course the defense for the company that sold the motorcycles was, it doesn't matter if it was strapped down right or not, and it wasn't strapped down incorrectly, but even if it was, that doesn't have anything to do with. So that was a dance where you have to find a toxicologist who really was on board with, and a lot of my evidence was how much this guy, and if let's say he smoked every day for 10 years, and we wound up getting a $50 million verdict
Wow.
where they found the motorcycle company 35% at fault.
That's amazing.
And with the economic, and the verdict against them was like $33 million.
Wow.
Very interesting, right? Uh, $10 million, 10.5 million in coverage. So on appeal, just to show you the highs and the lows, they want to mediate. And I said, well, you got $10.5 million in coverage. You only offered 40 grand going into the trial, right? Put up the
40
10 5,
grand.
40
40
grand.
grand. Wow.
I said, put up the 10.5 and we'll talk between 10.5 and 33 million. They go, okay. 2 days before the mediation, appellate court reverses the verdict,
No.
saying
No.
the judge improperly let in testimony of weed that yeah, no shit, right?
No. Dude,
Oh,
those that so how did you feel?
well, I mean,
I
I'm a
mean,
young. This was a while ago. This was one of my first really big multi-million-dollar verdicts where I had not yet realized the anger of appellate justices who maybe aren't trial lawyers, who
yeah.
make $1 million a year at the top of their, and they're looking at us young whippersnappers about to make a $10 million fee or whatever, and they're like,
No.
I mean, they follow the law. That's what I meant. I mean that it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with real life, right? It's all the law. Granted a new trial. I'm trying it again, right? But case settled. My client, wonderful man, wonderful family. He's like, I think I don't even remember what we, even if it was confidential. It was a 8-figure settlement, but of course, we also know that people are like, oh, we're just suing for jackpot justice. our clients go through hell and back, right?
Yeah.
Trials and litigation is not a pleasurable thing for them.
No.
And the idea that I'm just going to go through hell to try to grab a little money on the back end just is not reality for the
Yeah.
vast majority of our clients. And the
For,
same for
if
him.
Yeah, right. Go through hell and maybe a bunch of strangers who I have to go in front of and go through years of torture. Maybe, just maybe, they will give me a verdict that I then have to go through another years of hell on appeal with no certainty. That's not a bet that many people would take, especially to lose a loved one or lose an arm, lose a leg. It's crazy, man.
Well,
Let me
and yeah, but it's a marathon, right? It's a war made up of battles,
yeah.
and the appeal is the end. So anyway,
Let me ask you about weed and how it affects trials. So when I started practicing in 2008, and I don't know how it was in California, which it seems to us here in the Midwest probably a little more left leaning and probably left leaning earlier than us on things like weed. But
yeah,
when I first started practicing, defense attorneys would find in a medical record. This was before we had legalized marijuana. In Michigan now it's legal. We started with medical, now it's fully recreational. It's not a
right.
big deal generally. But when I first started, it was like the defense attorneys would act like they found a shiny gold coin
Oh, of
when
course.
they found in the medical records like the plaintiff smoked a joint or had THC. Woo, right? And with some juries here, I don't know how it was in California, but that could really go against you, right? Because it was considered, I think, a more negative thing. Nowadays, my experience is I just tried a case. The kid used medical marijuana. He was like a 22-year-old kid. He was kind of a naturalist, and he smoked medical marijuana. For the most part, the jury didn't care. There was a couple, when I did voir dire, there was some old curmudgeon police officer who used to, went through the drug war of the Bush years and stuff.
Right.
He was retired. He told me frankly, look, I got a problem with that, and he took himself off, which was an admirable thing to do. I don't know. What's your experience on it? Does it matter anymore generally? I mean, I don't. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it's a couple of different things. It's been legal here for a little while, and I agree with you. It's not nearly what the stigma was before. But also, you find it in your blood. That doesn't mean that you were smoking ten
At the
minutes
time, right?
before, right? So there's always a fight about getting it let in. But I always push the envelope. I teach about depositions. I love depositions with a passion, right? I teach it here at Loyola Law School. I mean, so even back then, I would up the ante when the defense is saying, "Oh, the plaintiff's a bad person. He smoked weed." Then I'm like asking the medical experts, the defense experts. I'm like, "Hey, do you smoke weed?" "Oh my God, you can't." I'm like, "You have, haven't you? Right, right. You're not a
That's
terrible person,
genius. That is
right?"
genius, Mike. I'm going to use that. I'm
Yeah,
stealing that
of
right now.
course. Or the defendant or whatever. And they're like, "Oh, you can't right. Why? Oh, it's not a big deal." Exactly.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
That is
Right.
genius, Mike.
And but things, times are changing. Back when I tried that case that I was talking about, that has to be in a questionnaire. That has to be in an area, a way that people can tell you about it without being embarrassed. I don't
Right.
know that I would necessarily need a questionnaire now. And in fact, maybe I wouldn't because I want, in that case today, I mean, I would want to have a full discussion about that.
Yeah. Do you ask
And
about it now? Do you ask about weed? Do you on your to the jury on voir dire if it's an issue?
if it's relevant, and it's a part of the case, so that I just had a case. Actually, it's set for trial. We just unfortunately got kicked a couple of weeks. Wrongful death case, motorcyclist. He had meth and marijuana in his system, right?
Your client,
Mike, the decedent,
the
yeah.
deceased. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I just, again, I didn't do any of the depots. I came in to try the case. I'm doing the experts, right? And they've hired a toxicologist. And I did the same thing. I'm like, you can't show that this has any effect on the collision. You're just saying generically it might or might not. And then I go into it and I'm like, have you ever taken meth? How about weed? When was the last time you smoked weed? Anyway, I pushed the envelope so hard and got them to I used the legal standard. Are you saying to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that the meth in his system affected this collision to a point that it would have happened differently? We wound up stipulating to liability. I gave up a little bit of comparative
Yeah.
fault, and we are just doing damages, and none of it's coming in.
Yeah,
Right?
that's a good call.
It was a very good result, a good result of. But again, that's hardcore depot work. Not being afraid to push the envelope, not in like a assholish way, although we all can on occasion
Yeah.
maybe be, but really pushing the envelope and saying, let's raise the standard and you tell me if it's to a standard. And if you're not willing to do that, then get out of my face, right?
Exactly. But that's what they say. Oh, look, the guy had some weed, so he's a bad person, and you should find against him.
I just had a new juror come in.
Oh,
This is
what's up?
Elias, my 3-year-old.
What's up, little man?
Hey, man.
What's up, little buddy?
We're on what's called a podcast, brother.
You're gonna be famous now, just like your dad.
Just like his mom, right? Thanks, buddy.
I had a deposition yesterday, and my son Jonathan was not feeling well, so he came to my office with me, and I had him sit in on my first deposition. So I told the court reporter, I said, "You make sure his name is on that front page."
Absolutely.
So I can
right?
show it to him in 20 years, right? So. Well, that's great. See, that's an interesting case. Tell us about another crazy case or interesting case that you've done over the years. I know there's so many.
Well, one of the things, if you follow my social media stuff, and by the way, do you mind if I give some information about how to contact me? Because I've done podcasts and people have reached out and they're like, nobody gives you their cell number in my email. My cell number, if anybody
Absolutely.
likes this, wants to hear more, wants to talk to me, get depots, my phone number is 310-710-3345. And my name is Mike Alder, and my Instagram is mike.alder. And my last name, Alder, is the name of my firm, Alder Law. And I got a bunch of stuff on social media, and on YouTube is Alder Talk, and there's a lot of stuff on there. But one of the things I really believe in is that you can't be a good lawyer without being a good person who lives life. And that requires health, physical health, and mental health. And that requires discipline, and that requires mindset, and many times meditation and journaling, but a whole bunch of different things where you push the envelope, you push your pain threshold, you step outside your comfort zone routinely
Yeah.
so that you can prepare. And the reason I say that is because I'm a PI lawyer and now, for the last 15 years, an employment trial lawyer. And I've tried a copyright case, a one-off case, but about 2.5 years ago, I got a call and said, hey, will you consider interviewing for the position of a groundwater contamination trial lawyer on behalf of cities and states? There's a great firm, and their main trial lawyer, all they do is represent cities and states on contingency for groundwater contamination of gasoline, MTBE, or dry cleaning, PCE, that kind of stuff.
So this
And
is so just so our viewers who aren't in this area understand. So is this like if you have a business or like an oil refinery or something that poisons the ground and poisons people, then you can represent the actual city and sue that business for the
correct.
citizens?
And the damages are for remediation and cleanup. And they're against the big chemical companies, the big gas companies, who have poisoned the groundwater through either gasoline or. So here I am, and it's like, hey, this firm has done this for 25 years, but the trial lawyer had a big medical emergency, and they needed someone to come in and do the bellwether trial in San Francisco for this big city up there against Dow Chemical, PPG. We're
Yeah.
talking Latham and Watkins, Alston Bird, Shook Hardy and
Big,
Bacon,
big,
right?
big firms. Yeah.
And I don't even know how to pronounce the name of the chemical. And they're
Yeah.
like, come up to the city council. And so here I am. I don't know. Oh, by the way, the trial's in 5 months. And there's a 22-year litigation and 5 million pieces of paper.
Oh my God.
Hey, PI lawyer, you want to come on up? So here I am. And I'm like, shit, I don't know anything. I'm out, right? I don't know how to do this. Fuck.
Yeah.
Or this is what I prepare for. I know how to step outside my comfort zone. I know what a challenge is, and I know how to die and come back to life. I know how to fail and get up and do it again. Let me get in. And so I interviewed, they hired me, and I tried the first bellwether in San Francisco, I guess about a year and a half ago. 25 dry cleaning sites, and here's the first one. And it was a beautiful thing. I spent time learning a little bit of a time over 4 or 5 months. It took me about 3 weeks to even understand some of the names of the chemicals, right?
Yeah.
But now, fast forward to the trial, and I've got my co counsel, now I'm of counsel. He's an environmental law professor, right? He's telling me and I'm like, I need to know enough to understand what's going on to tell a jury who doesn't know anything
Right.
enough to understand what's going on. And it turned out to be a wonderful advantage, right? So the bellwether was $56 million verdict, right?
Wow.
And now I represent Puerto Rico, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, a bunch of cities as the trial guy to come in to do some of these things. Now, 2 years ago, I didn't know anything about this. Now I'm one of the trial guys to go around the country. What the hell?
Yeah.
But what's so interesting is those cases, as much as any, are about relating to people. And 22 years of litigation, doesn't it really come down to if you make billions of dollars selling garbage and then you put the garbage in the ground, shouldn't you have to pay to take it out? Uh, isn't that all there is? And what was so funny, I always I put this on the transcript on my social media is the Chicago Latham and Watkins lawyers versus me in my boots and my talking to the jury. In closing arguments, they got really frustrated and they tried to become me, right?
How?
So
What did they do?
so I do my opening closing, and then the lawyer for Latham, a woman from Chicago, she gets up and she's trying to be colloquial. I called my mother this weekend and I said, the plaintiff's lawyer is calling us liars and they're saying we're hiding documents. And my mother said, honey, that means that they're afraid of losing. And I'm like, who have you become? That's not you. Who are you now in
Yeah.
closing argument? But everything, as you know, you're a genius at this about transversals, right? So here I
Yeah.
come on rebuttal. And the first thing I said is, I don't know who's tricking who, but I think y'all know. But by the way, I got a mama too. And my mama told me is if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck. And
It's a
ladies and
duck.
gentlemen, we need you to call them a duck. And one of the jurors in the back goes, mm-hmm. I'm like,
That's always the
yes.
best feeling in the world when the jurors like, uh-huh. They're shaking their head, uh-huh.
But I'm like, it's just another example of don't wear something to try to prove a point. Don't say something different than who you are to try to
Yeah.
become some. I mean, just be who you are. I mean, there's no perfect right way to be.
Right.
It's whatever way you are. If you communicate well and you're authentic and you know some, technical stuff about trials, you're a good
Yeah.
trial lawyer. I mean, you're a good persuader. That's all that matters.
Be authentic. The biggest, I think, mistake that we can make is try to be somebody we're not, or try to copy somebody else. Like, I love talking to other lawyers of high caliber, like you, and I pick up things and I might make that my own and use it. But there's a difference between taking it and making it your own and just straight up trying to copy it, because I'm not Mike Alder. I'm not Nick Rowley, and they're not me, right? So we got to be ourselves. And that lady would have probably been better off being the uptight, sticky defense attorney that she is. Not that she would have won, but then trying to be somebody that she's not. I just got finished with a religious accommodation case here in Detroit where Samantha Teal was helping me out
Oh, I
with
saw it, man. I followed it, and I'm like, hey, come out to California,
Yeah.
bring that here, man, because you got a gold mine out here for that happens
That's
all the time.
right, man. But it was religious accommodation, and the defense attorney, who was like from our version of like a Latham Watkins, he was from a really big firm, Dickinson Wright, here in Michigan, which is one of the largest firms. He was, he's a corporate guy. He's not a bad guy, but he tried it like a normal, just like you explained, like the normal corporate playbook, and doesn't really relate to people. But I think in closing, he's trying to do something like to be like me, or to try to like relate. And he told this weird story about, because it's religious accommodation, right? And he's like, he was trying to blame my client, and he told the jury this weird story about he genuflects every night with his son and gets on his knees and looks up to God and prays to God, and all this weird stuff, which was like completely at odds with everything he had done throughout the whole
Exactly.
trial.
Yep.
So I was hard, I'm just like writing down some stuff on the opening, but then it actually made you perk up because it's so different. And so, but I owned it, so I got up and I said, well, I got to tell you something you didn't know about me too. I said, I went to Catholic school, but the nuns kicked me out. And, my dad's a theologian. He was pretty disappointed in me. I went to an inner city school where I was a minority, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, because I got to see how people were discriminated against because of who they are, what they believed in, where they came from, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah, blah.
Just
But
perfect.
you got to
Right.
roll with it, right? You got to roll with it.
Right.
So let me ask you, Mike, so what advice would you give for a lawyer who's stepping outside their comfort zone and coming in on a case that may be foreign to them? What would the best advice be? I mean, I hear you say kind of keep it simple and stick to a story, but do you have any advice for lawyers out there who are in that situation?
Well, one thing I would say is focus group it. And now there's a million different ways of focus grouping. And some of us all, recently have heard about what big data
Big
and all
data,
the,
yeah.
right. But I'm talking about, you could even bring people from your firm or friends or whatever and present the issues in the case. And to start, there's no time like the present. And this is for any lawyer in any case, even at the beginning, that helps you create a discovery plan, or before trial helps you figure out strategies. But that is really practice. And there is no substitution. Ask
Right.
Allen Iverson about practice, right? Practice is actually really important. But I know you feel this way. Every time you focus group something, didn't you learn the case like infinitely
Absolutely.
better,
Way
right?
better. And I have a trial in March. Sorry to throw you off this, but like I told my secretary, we're doing a mock trial focus group next weekend. And she's like, why are you doing it this early? I said, because I know it's going to force me to prepare my entire opening.
100%.
And I'll only get better from there, and I'll understand things. I'll know I need to file this motion, that motion. But sorry to interrupt you. I agree with
No.
you 100%.
And I think all of us, by the end of a trial, believe our own bullshit, right? How
Yeah,
many times have you started a trial and you've recognized all these real issues, and then by the end of the trial, you're like, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, and
yeah,
nobody
yeah, yeah,
cares about. And then, sure enough, the jury tells you all the things that you were worried about at the beginning.
yeah, yeah.
So it's amazing what a third party who has no dog in the hunt asks you about that you don't think as a legal scholar or whatever that's even relevant, and it's like the biggest elephant in the room,
Right,
and I don't have an answer for that. Well, I want to know that I don't have an answer for that before I'm in trial and not have an answer for that.
right.
And so how many times when I learned a case does a focus group where I have people asking me stuff that I don't know, that tells me I got to go figure this out. I got to
Yeah,
go get that answer. Then I got to explain it in a way that answers this question without being too verbose or, overly complicated. What an amazing way of learning your case and learning how to present your case. So that's one thing I would say is that, you jump in. Well, I don't want to do it until I'm ready. I don't want to focus it until I know all the facts. Well, that's kind of like the opposite of sometimes what a focus group does. Even if you focus it just for you,
yeah.
it's such an important thing. So that's one thing I would say. And then just generally, I'm a big believer in daily preparation for, like, I teach advanced litigation at a law school here, Loyola Law. And I always have the first semester class, I say to the students, let's just talk about some questions y'all have. And I get the same questions every year. How do I make $1 billion in 10 days or less? And how do I be a great trial lawyer in one trial or less?
Right. And not work that hard. Right.
Right. And I say, here's the secret to being a great trial lawyer. Take a cold shower every day and make your bed. Every day. And they're like, drop this class. What the hell are you talking about? Right? And I'm like, you don't understand that discipline and consistent behavior and stepping outside your comfort zone and being willing and able to create a system in your mind and body that allows you to deal with stress and to breathe and understand that you can fail and survive. And that makes you more able to push the envelope and practice that. Because when you're in a 4-month lead in against the largest companies in the world and you don't know anything about anything, and you have to make a decision of whether you're going to jump in or you're going to step out, or you're going to do a cross and you're going to try to take that initiative, but you might get your balls cut off,
Yeah.
but you have to create a way that hey, I know how to do this, and if I fail, I know how to survive. And if you're telling me at the beginning of your career, well, cold showers, that's really uncomfortable. And why do I make my bed? That doesn't have anything to do with trying cases. You got to understand that this is not a 0 to 100 in a week. Right? You trying these cases is a function of your hard work over decades
Right.
and your fitness over decades. But I got to tell you also, I get up at 4 a.m. I do a cold shower. I do a spiked mat, but I work out all the time.
Yeah.
I eat right. I don't drink anymore. In a week-long trial, both sides are fine. In 2 weeks, I'm kind of stepping a little, but a month-long trial, you understand the stress and
Yeah.
just physical demands, right? All of you guys all women who are watching this, who try cases, how sore are you at the end of every day? You're
Yeah.
like, I've been sitting on my ass and I'm sore as hell. That's because you've been tight as a, right? But I started to notice 3 weeks into a trial, and I'm taking care of myself every day, getting sleep, understanding that you start to start to separate. Right?
Yeah.
That's the same in life. That is the same in life. And people are like, but don't you have to have a lucky break? Don't you have to have family money? Well, you got to be like good looking or a great speaker. Or I'm like, those are, those help. But it's that daily, consistent discipline and understanding that discipline is momentum. And if you don't make that bet and I'll make it tomorrow, you're less likely to make it tomorrow.
I agree with you 100%.
Right?
I had a 6-week trial with 41 witnesses who testified when I was younger, and I was just starting out. And I remember my friend had a trial at the same time, somewhere in the middle of these 6 weeks, because his was like a week long. And he called me and said, I said, I got to call you back. I'm out on a run right now. And he said, what? He goes, how are you out on a run right now? He's like, I've been staying up until 4 a.m. every night, cramming for the next day. But what he didn't understand is, like, you can't I would come up with my best things when I'm getting the exercise.
100%.
When I'd have these flashes of brilliance. I'm not going to have those if I'm burnt out, in a dark room, continuing to look at documents. I'm not saying that you don't have to do that. You do, but like, you have to be able to be healthy and eat right. And I have a regimen. Like, when I go to trial, I like pre-order all these shakes. I have all this stuff because you got to have it, or else it can lead to disasters. You burn out, and then you see. The best is when you look at the defense attorney and he looks like shit, and you're like, all right, it's getting to him way worse than it's getting to me.
Well, and that's a function of your mindset and your experience, but also your discipline. And, and if people are like writing us off, like, oh, that you're boring. Oh, you're OCD. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm like, you're entitled to your opinion, but you don't get it. And you probably never will. And that's a blessing to those of us who do get it.
Yeah.
And the fact that 95% of people, well-intentioned, don't ever follow up and don't execute and are too afraid to step forward is a blessing to those of us who do. Because if everybody did this, the competition would be brutal.
It would be. Well, I still got a lot to catch up with you. With the cold showers, and when I was out with Nick Rowley out at his house getting ready for work, every morning it was like, let's hit it. So I got to catch up. I'm not perfect.
Nick and Courtney are the godparents to that little boy that was right here. I mean, Nick
I
and I
love
have known
it.
each other for a long time. We've known each other for a long time. And in fact, my wife, Gina, and Courtney realized that they were in the same law school class at Loyola together many years ago. And now they're like, friends.
It's funny how life works, man.
It really is. It's amazing.
All right. I'm getting my production team here is giving me the time's up. So we're going to do
about stuff. Come on,
I
man.
know, man. I could be here all day with you, but
I'll see you in June, though. We'll talk then. That's for sure.
That's for damn sure. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to another Cases Gone Wild, brought to you by me, Jon Marko. And thanks for Mike Alder for coming on the show. What a great guy, a great trial lawyer, great thoughts and inspirations today. Remember, Mike's coming to Michigan, and he's going to be speaking with others at the Michigan Trial Lawyer Summit. So please go to mtlsummit.com and register if you're a lawyer out there practicing and doing what we do. We thanks Mike for coming on the show. You're a true titan. All right, everybody. We'll see you in another 2 weeks here on another Cases Gone Wild.